Hi everyone. Let me move the mic so you can hear me say hi, everyone, in case you didn't. Sorry if there's a little discrepancy between what's going on between this and the mic, meaning the distance, but that was a little example of working on articulation endurance. I think a lot of people have experienced tongue fatigue before, you know? And so, what do we do to work on it? Well, I'm thinking going from single to double tongue in a passage like that, thank you, Pachelbel, that you can really start to get a feeling of the balance of what it's needed in the embouchure grip, in the support necessary to maintain that kind of consistency all the way through, and your air capacity. I don't have that big of an air capacity, so I felt that on that. I know there's people who could probably do it 3 times. Now, there was a time I could circular breathe and articulate, but for some reason that seemed to bite the dust. I think this would have been hard to do, though, like that, even though I know I had a student, Darren Acosta, who's first trombone in the Finnish radio orchestra, phenomenal player. And he could do that and a lot more, circular breathing and articulating. That I'm just happy to be able to do that in basically one breath. But to have that feeling of articulation endurance where you can keep going, there's many benefits because different kinds of things, for example, let me turn up the gain. Different kinds of playing will offer different systemic advances throughout all of your playing. I don't know if that made sense, but certain kinds of playing, okay, like working on articulation like this, will definitely have a systemic effect, just not with your tongue, with your air support, with your embouchure hinge joints and foundational framework, and what I call the pucker point, where the contact between the upper and lower lip have to be maximum. The vibration has to be maximum on this. So even doing that on the mouthpiece, you know, I'm sure it wouldn't last long at all. Well, I could do it that way as long as I could keep going and getting it much more compact, which of course I wouldn't want to. I've done that kind of thing on the instrument before when it really feels unbelievably tight, okay? But as a generalism, I don't try to do that on the instrument because of, well, I don't want the timbre to change that much from going for, you know, kind of an openness, even though it's articulated like that, into sounding like Donald Duck, unless there was a real musical need for that to happen. But there's all sorts of odd and curious techniques that we can use. And this is where the more tools you have, at a certain point that won't be confusing for you to have this giant archive or shed of techniques. And for me, I feel very fortunate because more and more keep coming to me. Why? Because some of the ones maybe that I had aren't as effective anymore. And because I've been playing the trombone for a very long time now. I don't know. It's getting to be a long time. That's for sure. 58 years. So with that, I've always found things. Someone will do something and I'll get an idea. Because I try to learn from everybody. Hey, wait a minute. I could use that here. But I have to translate it into my system. But you get the gist of what they're doing. And then you translate it into your own language. That's why I've been thinking about this. School's starting, and this is a teacher's log moment. What's the most important thing a teacher can pass on and transmit to their students? First of all, many things. You can transmit all sorts of things. Your bitterness, if you have it. Your love, your enthusiasm, your inspiration. That's all can be transferred very easily. But as a teacher, what I want to try to help someone with is discover in them what they're about and what they can take that knowledge, how they can take that knowledge into their own art and therefore into the world, or even if they decided to quit playing, to actually have a foothold into what is their capital S self. So, to help someone being able to discover themselves and what they need is very important to me as a teacher. Because in this day and age, there's so many things. Someone can get lost in how much there is. That they can call up someone, hey, do you have an idea about this? Do you have an idea about that? Can you show me how to do this? I had a student once, I was trying to bring them in on how things were connected to each other. And he said, look, could you just tell me how to do it? Now, that was a hair disrespectful. Okay? Quite honestly. But that's what people are used to. Could you just tell me how to do it? Well, I did. Many different ways. Okay? But there's a personal responsibility on the student's part to have discovery and try things. And if they're trying to discover it, I can come in and say, hey, try it that way. Maybe a little more that way, a little more that way. Let's help them find that spot. Okay? So that was the teacher's log moment. So back to my articulation endurance. I think I'll try it again. Hopefully me turning up the gain won't totally distort the sound now. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with sound in the computer. Now, I'm not thrilled about the way that's sounding, so I need to think of a greater line during that whole thing. Yeah, that was a bit better in terms of what I'm looking for, but of course I had the aid of having extra air that time and not having to do these separate 16th notes perfectly. So, sorry about the discrepancy in the sound back and forth. But I'm always thinking about what can create more. So when we have to do what we have to do on our own artistic personal expression level, or when you're asked to on a job, if you have a little extra, I used to have more than extra in every kind of dynamic contrast, from what I would call the, well, frankly, the bury the orchestra mode, or just sending it so far out, because I trained myself how to play loud on a farm in Minnesota. I developed what's called three-dimensional sound out there, and of course enhanced it, even though I can't use it the same way. That's not what my body wants to do. And taking it down really, really far. So I never had a problem. Someone says, could you do this? Could you do that? And any dynamic range was basically fine. But in terms of this articulation, you can take lyrical things and just add a continuous, what I would call strumming, like a guitar strums. If they want something to sound sustained. So sometimes I'll play certain melodies, and if my tongue, I have a sore on my tongue, if my tongue will let me right now, play certain melodies that I'm doodle-tonguing the whole time, to have that kind of ukulele, mandolin effect. It doesn't want to do it really the way I'd like it to do it. It doesn't want to move because of the block. But this is something you can do with a Bordoni, right? And if you can't doodle tongue, then you could go, sorry, I'm moving back. Let's see, I got caught between doodle tongue and double tongue. You see what I mean? Do that during a whole lyrical melody. Do it on Saint-Saëns Organ Symphony. A lot of times I'll flutter tongue through it, which is really it always feels better. It always feels better doing that. So anyway, I hope you can make something out of this funny video. But it's really about loading up our archive. Some people say arsenal. Some people will say the shed, or the workbench, the toolkit. Fill it up with a lot of different techniques, especially the older you get. The more things you've figured out in different kinds of ways, when you start to get into a little bit of a sticky spot with something, then you might be forced to try to figure out something new for you. And this is where the prison bars of right and wrong can get in the way. Some people think, well, I can't do that. I can't breathe through my nose when I play. And there's two nostrils. Breathing through the ears is harder. Okay? So, the nose is a better choice. For example, sometimes it really just helps you. If you're having trouble kind of centering a note, get the embouchure set and breathe through the nose, and boy, sometimes it's just bingo right there. And frankly, excuse me, my spit valve broke a few years ago. So I kind of get to pretend I'm a French horn player and pull out my slides. I only have one that I'm going to pull out and empty it. Things. Okay, you can go back on. Good. So I'm going to play something like this. Now, frankly, that sucked. Well, watch this. I like when that happens because then I can go, where was I when I played that? Where was I? Was I really in it? Or am I feeling like I don't want to take too much time on the video? Well, the heck with the video. Mind is a funny thing. So I still don't like it, and I know why it's shaky. I had a little bit of sugar, and that always does it to me. But now I can show you the techniques that I will do to combat that, even that feeling. And one of the first things I'll do, if you can hear me, is flutter tongue. What's so great about that, people say move your air, move your air. Depending on the condition of your embouchure, that might not be enough. But there's something about, if you can flutter tongue, something about that constant movement of the tongue. You cannot create a flutter tongue unless there's an incredible movement of the air going through it, or it won't work. And plus it changes the nature of the inside of your mouth. It's not exactly the same. It's kind of a simple little exercise I wrote for Fundamentals Friday last week. No one came to it, so no one got the music sent to them. But I wrote a whole page of different material. And the reason why they didn't come, obviously, is school is starting. And it's kind of in a funny time. So some of my offerings I will be changing the times for. And I'll figure out what that is. I mean, some people will be free and some won't, and that's the way it is anyway. Okay? But people are moving back to wherever they're going to school and all this stuff. So Labor Day weekend is maybe not a great time to have a Fundamentals Friday class on September 2nd, when school probably starts on the 6th for most people, most conservatories. So I hope you can hear me when I left my music stand up there this whole time. Not my music stand. It's sitting on a music stand. A metal music stand turned into a wonderful stand for my mic. So that's taking a melody, right, that would sound very different without that in it, but using it as an articulation exercise, a continuingness, a strumming. And it makes you think musically different too. It makes you think musically different as well. Articulation endurance, mental endurance, stamina to keep trying, in the will for the love that it should be so, to keep finding what you need, put yourself in the process, feel it as a journey, work with your first and second overlay so they can create a circumstance that you can really go into the third overlay and realize you want to get to the third overlay. And that is a realm of, well, let's put it this way. It's the ocean. So a lot of times you can be on the surface level of the ocean, which is amazing, right? You can keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's pretty deep. In fact, there's no end. And you can get to the cause of things rather than just the symptoms. And you can get to the spirit of the music, which goes beyond a concept of how legato should be, how articulation should be. In other words, dividing them up. And you know I talk about schools of thought. Well, my school of thought is when there's a will, there's a way, and another way. My school of thought is if you can't find it, make it. My school of thought is everyone's different. And as a teacher, can I encourage them, find the ways to help them light their own fire? So the inspiration they might feel from me would only light up the inspiration that's in them anyway and might be covered a bit. Because it's not a matter of me passing on my inspiration. Because no one can own inspiration. But someone might have theirs ignited from yours as a teacher. And as long, I feel, as the teacher says, now I'll help you find your way. But then you got to be accountable for doing that too. Because don't you want to anyway? What's laziness going to get you? Nowhere in life. Nowhere. Absolutely zero. Anything you want to accomplish in life, you got to be in the driver's seat. And then eventually, you can find out what's driving you.